What makes this story truly unsettling isn't just the mysterious substance that fell from the sky, it's what scientists found when they looked at it under a microscope. This video contains disturbing content that some viewers may find unsettling. Before we dive into today's strange and unexplained event, if you're fascinated by mysterious phenomena and true stories that defy explanation, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss our new uploads. Now, let's begin. August 7th, 1994, started as an ordinary rainy morning in Oakville, Washington. This small logging town of about 700 residents, nestled in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, was accustomed to rainfall. The region typically receives over 60 inches of precipitation annually. But what fell from the sky that morning was anything but ordinary. Beverly Roberts was among the first to notice something strange. She had stepped outside to bring in her newspaper when she felt an unusual substance on her hand. It wasn't water. It was gelatinous, clear, and slightly sticky, like tiny blobs of jelly. Looking around, she realized these translucent globules covered everything: her car, her lawn, the street. Each blob was about the size of a rice grain, and they had fallen in such quantities that they formed a thin layer across the entire town. At first, residents were merely curious. Some thought it might be some unusual form of precipitation, perhaps a rare weather phenomenon. Others joked that it was jellyfish rain. But within hours, the situation took a disturbing turn. Beverly Roberts began experiencing severe flu-like symptoms: difficulty breathing, blurred vision, nausea, and extreme fatigue. She wasn't alone. All across Oakville, people were falling ill with similar symptoms. Sonny Barclift, another Oakville resident, described the experience. "It was like having the worst case of flu I've ever had. My eyes were burning, I couldn't breathe, and I felt like I was going to pass out. And it happened so quickly after touching that stuff." By the end of the day, the local hospital was overwhelmed with patients reporting identical symptoms. The illness was so widespread that emergency services were stretched to their limits. Officer David Lacey of the Oakville Police Department was on patrol when the gelatinous rain fell. His patrol car was covered in the substance. As he drove through town responding to calls about the strange phenomenon, he too began to feel ill. "I started to get dizzy and nauseous," he later reported. "My eyes were burning, and I had trouble focusing. I had to pull over because I couldn't drive safely anymore." Officer Lacey would remain sick for over 2 weeks. What made the situation even more alarming was that the mysterious blobs weren't confined to a small area. They covered approximately 20 square miles surrounding Oakville. Farms, forests, roads, buildings, nothing was spared. And reports soon came in that animals were being affected as well. Cats and dogs became lethargic and ill after walking through yards covered in the substance. On one farm, several horses developed severe respiratory problems, and a few smaller animals, including rabbits and birds, were found dead. As concern mounted, samples of the gelatinous substance were collected and sent to the Washington State Department of Health for analysis. The results only deepened the mystery. Microbiologist Mike McDowell was one of the first to examine the samples under a microscope. What he discovered was baffling. The blobs contained human white blood cells, but impossibly, these cells had no nuclei, which should be impossible in a living organism. Further testing revealed the presence of 2 types of bacteria within the blobs. One was Pseudomonas fluorescens, a common environmental bacterium, but the other was Enterobacter cloacae, a bacteria typically found in the human digestive system. Even more disturbing, some samples appeared to contain an eukaryotic cell, a complex cell type found in animals and humans, but again, with no nucleus. These findings raised alarming questions. How could a substance falling from the sky contain human cellular material? Why were these cells missing their nuclei? And perhaps most importantly, what was causing the widespread illness throughout Oakville? The situation became even stranger when the blobs fell again 6 days later, on August 13th, and then again on August 21st, and once more on August 24th. Each time, the pattern was the same: gelatinous blobs falling during light rain, followed by reports of illness throughout the community. The substance continued to appear sporadically for 3 weeks before finally stopping as mysteriously as it had begun. As news of the bizarre phenomenon spread, various government agencies became involved in the investigation. The FBI collected samples. The National Guard was consulted. The Department of Ecology ran tests. Even the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC) expressed interest in the case. Yet despite all this attention and multiple laboratory analyses, no definitive explanation was ever provided to the residents of Oakville. This lack of answers led to rampant speculation and theories about the origin of the blobs. One of the most prevalent theories involved military activity. The Naval Air Station on Whidbey Island is located approximately 50 miles north of Oakville, and residents reported unusual aircraft activity in the days before the first blob rainfall. Some speculated that the military might have been conducting biological weapons tests or experimenting with weather modification technology that went wrong. Sunny Barclift, who had collected samples of the substance in her yard, became convinced that there was a military connection. "We had been hearing military aircraft flying over at odd hours for weeks before this happened," she said. "And then suddenly this stuff falls from the sky and makes everyone sick? That's not a coincidence." Adding fuel to these suspicions was the fact that some residents claimed men in black suits and unmarked vehicles were seen collecting samples around town, and that some of the official test results were never made public. However, military officials consistently denied any involvement with the incident, and no concrete evidence has ever emerged linking naval operations to the blobs. Another theory suggested that the blobs might have been waste material from commercial aircraft. Planes are equipped with storage tanks for lavatory waste, and there have been documented cases of leaks from these systems creating blue ice that falls to the ground. However, this theory fails to explain several key aspects of the Oakville incident. The blobs were clear, not blue. They contained unusual cellular material not typically found in aircraft waste. And perhaps most significantly, they fell repeatedly over a 3-week period, which would suggest an implausible series of identical aircraft malfunctions. Some scientists proposed that the blobs might have been a form of cyanobacteria or other microbial colony that had been swept up into the atmosphere and then rained down on Oakville. Certain types of algae can form gelatinous masses, and some can indeed cause illness in humans. But this theory doesn't account for the presence of human cellular material or the specific bacteria found in the samples. Perhaps the most outlandish theory, though one that gained traction among some residents, was that the blobs were of extraterrestrial origin. The timing of the incident coincided with the annual Perseid meteor shower, leading some to speculate that the gelatinous material might have been carried to Earth on meteorites or was somehow related to increased debris in the upper atmosphere. While this theory might seem far-fetched, it speaks to the truly bizarre nature of the incident and the lack of satisfying conventional explanations. What makes the Oakville Blobs case particularly disturbing is not just the mysterious substance itself, but the apparent lack of transparency in the investigation. Many residents reported that after initial media coverage, there seemed to be a concerted effort to downplay the incident. Some claimed that their samples were confiscated, and others said they were discouraged from speaking publicly about their experiences. Beverly Roberts, who had been one of the first to encounter the blobs, later expressed frustration. At first, everyone wanted samples and information. The health department, the ecology people, even the military. But then it all just stopped. No one would tell us what they found. No one would give us answers. It was like they wanted us to forget it ever happened. The official stance eventually settled on the explanation that the blobs were probably the result of bombers dropping waste material from planes, or possibly the remnants of a meteor shower. But neither of these explanations adequately addresses the biological components found in the samples or the pattern of illness that swept through Oakville. Nearly 3 decades have passed since the strange rain fell on Oakville, and the mystery remains unsolved. The samples collected by residents have long since deteriorated. The official test results, if they exist in their entirety, have never been fully disclosed to the public. And the residents who experienced the phenomenon firsthand have been left with lingering questions and, in some cases, ongoing health issues. What happened in Oakville in August 1994 stands as one of the most bizarre and unsettling incidents in recent American history. It reminds us that despite our advanced scientific understanding and sophisticated monitoring systems, there are still phenomena that defy easy explanation. Whether the result of military experiments, environmental anomalies, or something else entirely, the Oakville Blobs incident forces us to confront the unsettling possibility that sometimes the truth is not merely strange, it might be deliberately obscured. And perhaps that's the most disturbing aspect of the story. Not just that something inexplicable fell from the sky and made people sick, but that those affected may never know exactly what it was or why it happened. In the quiet forests of the Pacific Northwest, the rain still falls on Oakville, but the answers to what fell there in the summer of 1994 remain as elusive as ever.